Hello, hello, and happy Friday. I hope it is Friday wherever you are in the world. Even if you're watching on a replay, let this be your Friday, okay? Yay. We're coming into Labor Day weekend. Very exciting here in the US. For those of you watching internationally, it is going to be a long weekend. And so we are excited about that. And a great way to kind of pull it all together is to talk about virtual myofunctional therapy, talking about telehealth, teletherapy, whatever you want to call it, working with clients distance wise, where you're going to be on a platform kind of like this, where you're watching me on a screen, but I'm in real life somewhere else, distant from where you are. So, to get us started today, I always ask to just give me a hi, hello, like something, let me know that you can hear me, you can see me. I am so happy to have you and to be here with you this afternoon. I hope that it's not too much content, but I want it to also be just enough content. So we're not going to go into like the deep practicalities of what it would take to do myofunctional therapy in a virtual setting, but we will go over like the bare bones basics. There's a lot of things that people think you can't do. And so I want to dispel a little bit of those myths, talk about what you can do, what the benefits are, what the downsides are, and how to overcome and get over the hurdles that do exist. Like always, I tell you guys, let's just keep this going. I've been doing free lectures every week for over 30 weeks. We are now more than half a year that we've been together doing these lives every single week. And so let's keep this going. We want to keep it going because free education is incredibly important. I am just going to briefly touch on the fact that the International Association of Airway Hygienists, the IAAH, has a survey out now where we are taking in a lot of responses, over 100 responses so far, that I'm really excited about, of people who have taken a myofunctional therapy course. Now, if you have not seen anything about this survey, please let me know in the chat. I will happily get you the link. But what we're learning a lot from the survey is that a lot more support is needed post introductory course. Like, people are looking for more education that is affordable. People are feeling like you leave that course, so you need more education. So let's keep this going. This is a wonderful free resource available for everybody. So like, comment, share, subscribe if you're on YouTube, follow or connect with me if you're on LinkedIn, and we can keep this going like eternally. But we've got to spread the reach far and wide. There's so many people who don't know that I do these lives or who are catching on to them much later. It is vital that all the information that we get going out gets as far in reach as it can. All right. So let's just jump in. There's so many options when you become a myofunctional therapist. As myofunctional therapist, you can work in a lot of different settings, and I've done all the settings, like literally everything you can do with myo. I'm pretty sure I've done it. I've worked with telehealth internationally. I've had like contracts for international work. I work independently for my own company in the myo spot, where I will work and I see people globally all over the place. I have a home office. People come into my office, and people do come into my home, and they'll work in the office space that I have designated here. I go into people's homes. I do mobile therapy. Mobile therapy is a thing you can do in-home visits and sessions. I have an independent practice, the Myo Spot. I've worked in dental practices before under a lot of different categories. So as an employee, as an independent contractor, just going in and working and seeing people, whether it be evaluations or so forth in the dental practice. And that's separate, like under my own billing. So that is a wide spectrum of things that you can do in this industry. You don't have to do everything. But one of the things that people find most challenging or most intriguing, they're very curious about, particularly, is the telehealth aspect of it. So how can we work with people virtually? Because I hear so many things, like that's what I always get. I hear so many things about you can't really do it virtually, or it's just not as good. I will tell you that we learned a lot in COVID, especially how to work with each other or how to do things like this. There was a lot less of people getting together online, people of all ages have kind of mastered Zoom in a way that you cannot imagine. Zoom, FaceTime, Skype, WhatsApp, like we're on these channels and doing these virtuals and doing video calls. And so we've kind of mastered how to communicate with each other virtually. You just have to get to the point where you master how to communicate myofunctional therapy virtually. So here's some of the myths. It doesn't work, right? Because you don't have the tactile information. You won't be able to put your hands on people. You're not going to be able to feel around. So for that reason, and I'm just going to quote like things I have heard, I will never do an evaluation that is distance. Well, okay, that's perfect. Maybe you want to do just your sessions that way. But if you're going to do your evaluation, I would hope that if you're doing graduation, that's also going to be in person, and that those two things are able to, connect those dots really well. But let me tell you how we'll get over those myths in just a second. You're going to have a lot of difficulty visualizing the nuances of function. Well, that was always been an interesting response to me. When it comes to the nuances of function, I think part of our job is really helping the person get more introspective and understand what's going on within themselves. A lot less of you knowing what's going on and working with it, but more of you making them aware and then working on it together collaboratively. That way they know what they're avoiding, what kind of compensations and things. But don't worry, we'll get into that in just a second too. Technology mishap, nothing more obnoxious, especially me when I've been doing these lives for so long. Sometimes my video cuts out, or my microphone isn't working, or I'm connected to the wrong one, or something's just off. There's a kink in the chain. Technology always happens. Like, I don't know why, but it does. So technology mishaps, I accept that as a challenge that we will overcome in just a second. And then scope of practice, because that winds up coming up with other professionals when they say that they can't work outside of their licensed state. So is that the truth for registered dental hygienists? We'll touch on that a little bit, because I know I said I was never going to talk about scope of practice again, but more recently I've had another heated discussion with another practitioner online. And so we got to dispel a couple of myths, especially with regards to telehealth, okay? So no tactile information. Let's dive into this one. Now, yes, especially dental professionals, we are highly tactile. We love to get our hands on things, and you can really feel. There's nobody better for oral myofunctional therapy than dental professionals. Why? Because we already get our hands in, up, and around the orofacial region. So you know what discrepancies from normal feel like. You can feel when things are too tight. We're feeling in our extraoral exams. We're palpating, we're massaging, we're rolling, we're rounding our hands. We're getting everything in our tactile senses that we would like to ideally be able to utilize when we're doing myofunctional therapy. So it's not totally off to say that, okay, we can't do that when we're virtual. I get it. However, I think part of our challenge here in overcoming that is really to understand what we're working towards. So I touched on it a little bit before. Imagine an evaluation where you understand exactly what's going on, where you're able to be a part of it, and your buy-in is significantly stronger because you deeply understand what's going on. That's what can happen when you have really good verbal cues and direction, and you're able to direct your client to feel and palpate and to give you direct feedback. So when you're feeling such and such a muscle, what you want to feel is, let's go for the masseters, okay? Let's go for the masseters and just say that. You're going to direct them on how to really find the placement. So you want to be kind of around the area of your molars, teeth together, you're going to bite, clench, and you should feel it pop out. If you don't feel it pop out, I want you to move. Either you're too far back and you need to move forward, or you're too far forward and I need you to move back. I need you to get into the right position, and don't worry, we'll work through that together, right? So we talk about it. Get them in the right position. You're going to have your teeth and you're going to clench them together. Now, before you clench together, Mrs. Smith, here's what I want you to know. You're going to feel that muscle pop out. Your fingers are going to move. I'm watching your fingers. That's my tactile cue, is your fingers. I'm watching your fingers and getting my eyes on that, because I want to see how they move Is it a unison? Is it happening asymmetrically? Am I seeing one move and the other one not at all? Like, what am I looking for, right? So I'm using my eyes and getting those cues, but I want you, Mrs. Smith, to feel them pop out. Now, when you bite your teeth together, we're going to hold that position for 2 seconds, relax, repeat, relax, repeat, and relax. At the end of that, I want you to tell me if you feel any differences. Do they feel generally the same? Do they feel different? And if so, how? Okay, so let's do this together, Mrs. Smith. Teeth together, bite, relax, bite, relax, bite. Did they feel generally the same? Well, you know what's interesting is that I didn't really feel it so on one side, and they might say whatever they felt, or they might say, yeah, I felt totally the same. I didn't even know that that muscle did that. Like sometimes I'm watching a movie, and this was an interesting response I got from someone during an evaluation. Sometimes I'm watching a movie and you can see something pop out on there. Is that their masseter muscle? Yes, that's their masseter muscle. You're seeing that work while they are there. Sometimes it's a very tense scene. You can really see, like when you watch reality television, because I'm a big reality television person, and we have like the best conversations about it. Now they're hyper aware of their masseters, right? So if they are feeling it and they're getting their hands on it, so we're on the masseters, we're on the mentalis, I'm having them feel, and you can feel the platysma, can you feel your sternocleidomastoid? Let's feel the lymph nodes, hear what you're feeling for. This is what I want you to tell me. This is the feedback that I want you to give me. What's going on? The more aware they are, the more they feel any dysfunction, any asymmetries. They feel, they're going to now feel it internally. Oh my gosh, this is wrong. I have to fix this. Oh my gosh, this is whatever, asymmetric. This is overdeveloped. This is underdeveloped. I can barely feel this. I have to fix this. Because now they're hyper aware. It's a little different than when you are getting the tactile perception and you're telling them what you're feeling. Okay, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that, I'm feeling that. You can have them feel it in person too. You can get your hands on it, make sure everything is super accurate. But for the most part, I find that when they are hyper aware, it actually works to my benefit because now they're fully in understanding of what it is, what we have goals for. So hopefully, most of you, when you are doing an evaluation, at the end of it, I give a verbal rundown and I'm just like, we found this, and this. I have to do significantly less of that when I'm virtual because they've already kind of figured out some of their deficits. But then I write a report afterwards, and hopefully most of you are also doing reports afterwards, but they know fully what to expect in the report. Now we're just figuring out, are we going to work together? Like, is this 100% a sealed in deal based on this report that really outlines a lot of stuff? And we can do a live on that if that's something that you want me to do. You just got to tell me in the comments because, again, keep this thing going, okay? Make sure you're commenting and letting me know. If you think I'm absolutely wrong about this tactile thing, let me know in the comment, okay? Difficulty visualizing the nuances of function. Can I tell you, I will never stop leaning in, but I want to tell everybody to stop leaning in because anytime I'm having difficulty seeing, I imagine I'm like in person with them and I'm leaning into the computer screen. I'm like, hold on. Wait, I can't see that really well, as if that changes the angle, and it really doesn't. It does nothing to change the angle. It does nothing to change my visualization of a certain thing. And so you really wind up getting better at your verbal cues. Can you lift your chin up for me a little, Mrs. Smith? And now can you do that again? Do you have a cell phone on you, Mrs. Smith? Your cell phone should have a flashlight. I would like you to turn on the flashlight on your cell phone. And now, with your chin elevated, and hopefully they have a reflective surface, so we'll get to that soon about how you instruct them to show up, but hopefully they have a reflective surface. What I want you to do is open now really big, Mrs. Smith. I would love to visualize your uvula. And we're going to get our lighting adjusted just so I can see it, and I want you to be able to see it as well in their reflective surface. So let's see if we can get that going. And I'll tell you, I do not allocate any more time for my virtual assessments than I do for my in-person assessments. So while I am giving them more instruction, I'm actually spending less time talking to them than I would if I was in person, because then I'm trying to relay all of my results as opposed to them kind of feeling around, giving me the results and getting the feedback because they're looking at themselves directly while they're doing the things. But how you communicate how they should show up is incredibly important. And if you have a support system, if you're working with children, it's even better. You get somebody who's getting another eye on there, and they'll be like, oh, did you see such and such? Or I can redirect and say, hey, Mr. Smith, did you notice that when Mrs. Smith opened up her mouth, her jaw went all the way over to the side? Yeah, I never noticed that before, honey. Wow, we're going to have to keep an eye on that. Absolutely. Please do keep an eye on it, Mr. Jones. I'm glad to have you here with me. That way you can get a second set of eyes on these things, because I don't want you to not understand what's going on here. In order for us to get that neuromuscular reprogramming, we have to work together, meaning you need to understand what's going on, and I need to get that now hardwired into you that that's not the way that that's supposed to happen. We're going to do exercises and activities that are going to build upon why that shouldn't happen and how it should appropriately happen. And then we're going to habituate it. So we're going to start integrating these things into your daily life, and it's going to work out really well. But you have to follow the program along, okay? And Mr. Smith and Mrs. Smith are totally great. I mean, everybody is going to be able to really understand if you're working together collaboratively. So that's what that means, to have a support system. If you're working with a child, you want the parent involved. You want them looking, you want them watching, because guess what? A lot of people like to thank me at the end of their myofunctional therapy programs. Thank you so much. It was so great working with you. I appreciate you. Da, 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 da. That's wonderful. I love working with everybody, but I take zero credit. I'm like, I didn't do anything, really. I popped in 30 minutes once every week or once every 2 weeks. You did all the hard work in between that time that really gave us results. I didn't really do very much other than come in and provide some instructions and guidance. Outside of that, you took it into your own hands to get yourself well. And that is the win there, right? So with the parents, we need them to really be watching and looking at the children and to observe and to say, hey, this is what we saw when we were in the session with Miss Carice. Miss Carice said that we shouldn't be doing that. What we want is we want to make sure that when we're opening, we're coming down straight. Okay, so watch yourself really close, Jane Smith, whoever it is. Watch yourself really closely. Okay, you can open and close. Perfect. I love it. You're doing a fantastic job, and then that way the parent's able to really truly guide the child through, and or having a support system. It's really great for adults too, if they have a partner or a loved one or someone who's going to be there for some of these appointments to really make sure that that compensation is being eliminated. Okay. Technological mishaps. Oh, technology, and happens all the time. I would say 100% you want to ensure you have a good internet speed. Now, I have 1 gig, and I'll tell you, you have seen me online every week for more than a year now, for about 8 months roughly. We've been online weekly doing these things, and I can't tell you how many times you've probably seen my internet kind of like fuzz, or the microphone gets weird. I've got a lot of good equipment. I've got a whole filter for my microphone. I've got a high quality microphone that I can actually move the sound, and I have a lot of settings actually on this microphone. It's a really good microphone. All of that is a separate connection. I have a separate, from the one that came with my laptop, I have a separate camera, so it's a whole separate camera. I have good lighting. I have 1 gig of the speed, so I should be able to upload and download really, really fast. And I mean, my connection should be great, but life happens, okay? So life happens, internet happens. Technology, I don't think, is a really valid reason, because that's always going to be a problem. Anything can really be a problem. Working mobile therapy, traffic can be a problem. Traffic can be a problem if you're working in a home office, or if you're working in an office, people might have trouble getting to you. The difficulties that just surround life happens. Life happens, okay? So whatever system you're using, just understand the requirements for your system to be able to be online. I think a lot of people underestimate that there needs to be that element of everything involved too, that you have to have a certain level of system requirements. You shouldn't be on Windows 98. I don't think anybody is on that at all in any capacity, but you shouldn't be on Windows 98 trying to do telehealth. Just, it's not going to work with your system and your browser, okay? You got to choose reliable software. Reliable software is really going to come down to what provider you're using and how much your connection is good with that provider. So if you're using Zoom, let's say you're using Zoom, but you're using Zoom and it's installed in your computer. So you're not using it online like you would use Google Meet, right? How reliable is your Zoom if your computer, if your system is overloaded? So if you've got almost all the storage full on your computer, how good is your Zoom going to run if your computer is running slow? As opposed to if you're getting online and you're doing a Google Meet and you're doing Google Meet and using that software virtually, you're in the cloud, it's not really storing on your device, it might run a little bit better. That's not to say that I would choose Zoom over Google Meet or Google Meet over Zoom. I honestly don't use either for telehealth. However, it is something that you should take into consideration. Okay. Scope of practice. All right, let's get into it. There is a group. There's a lot of groups. There are 50 US states and there are territories. And I don't know if the territories have tongue-tied groups, but the states certainly do have tongue-tied groups. And New York and New Jersey is together as a tongue-tied group. And more recently, there was someone posting in there that it is illegal for RDHs to practice myofunctional therapy. Illegal, which is just wrong. I then asked for the legislation because legislation is publicly available. So legislation that is publicly available should be there that states what the fines or associated consequences of practicing myofunctional therapy as a registered dental hygienist should be. What is that legislation? They had no legislation to point me to, and no legislation at all about myofunctional therapy. They just pointed to, the New York State Board saying that it's out of scope for RDHs. Wonderful. Woohoo! That's not news. It's out of scope in all 50 states. Guess what? I'm going to use an analogy again. Let's take lactation. There is one US state, Louisiana, I'm pretty sure, one US state that has a regulatory body for lactation consulting. Does that mean that it is illegal to be a lactation consultant in any of the other 49 states? No, it does not. It's not a regulated field, at least not federally. If it was federally regulated and then up to the states to then determine that, and then only one state determined that they wanted to have it, then that would be something that we could have a really good conversation about. But it's not something that's federally regulated. You can become an IBCLC or just a CLC or just a CBS, or you can work with lactation without having any experience and you would be totally fine legally, okay? Is it probably like fraudulent? Might that be something if you didn't get any experience at all, like you took no coursework? Probably fraudulent. But it's not illegal to do so, right? It's lactation. So with that in mind, let's take a look at where there is some legislation around oral myofunctional therapy. Turns out there's none. There are 3 states where it is written into the Speech and Audiology Practice Act. And then my own paper where I wrote about that in 2021 was quoted back to me where I wrote that. Oral myofunctional disorders are listed in 3 states for speech language pathologists. It is Pennsylvania, it's New Jersey, it's Connecticut. Oral myofunctional disorders. Oral myofunctional disorders are not oral myofunctional therapy. Okay, it's not the same thing. Those are not in any way, shape, or form to say that that can't be done for anybody else that's doing it, right? Because RDHs always get the target, and you know that it's not an RDH thing, it's not an RDA thing, it's not a dental thing. It is something that anybody can do myofunctional therapy. There's no laws around it. Okay. We might have our own ethics code, and that ethics code is going to say that, oh, courses should only sell to RDH or SLP. But outside of that, there's no legislation dictating that. And there are big companies that none of these SLPs would take second to even step to. There are big companies. Let's take a large FDA approved device company and use that as the example. You know what I'm talking about. There is a big company that does it and trains whomever. You don't have to have a license. They wouldn't take a breath to those companies to mention anything about illegal or legalities. Here's what we need to remember. If it's only written, and if we wanted, even if we wanted to take that OMDs to mean OMT, that would mean that only SLPs in the states of Pennsylvania, New York, and Connecticut can practice myofunctional therapy. Everywhere else, it is now illegal, right? That's exactly what that would have to mean. That's foolish, right? You hear that and you're like, that's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. It can't possibly be illegal. That's because it's not. There's no legislation that you can point me to. Legislation is publicly available. There are consequences posted. If you are littering in a place where they have a legislation about it, there is a sign posted. But you can also go online and you can find legislation about littering and what the fines and the consequences are. Punishable by a fine up to or however many days in jail. Like, you would know what the consequences are. That's not the case. So here's what the real deal is. RDHs are not able to practice yoga, Pilates, IBCLC, myofunctional therapy, Reiki, acupuncture, chiropractic. You're not able to practice any of those things and a broad spectrum of other things. You're not able to practice any of those while you are a registered dental hygienist performing clinical duties, because that is out of scope. That is out of scope. It doesn't make sense to be in your clinic as a registered dental hygienist, clocked in, actively working under your license and doing acupuncture. That is wild, right? So marketing yourself as a registered dental hygienist that does acupuncture is inaccurate. Keep it separate. Those are two separate things, okay? Separate. These don't happen at the same time. None of the procedures, standards, protocols are remotely the same. Same thing with myofunctional therapy and registered dental hygiene. There is no illegality. Somebody would have to really point to legislation in order to do some sort of like rigmarole with how we're going to determine that it's illegal to practice, okay? So putting our thinking caps on and really operating from a point of we're all educated professionals. And so we're only going to discuss things in a manner in which it has to make sense in order for it to be true. We know that that's not true. So scope of practice aside, you can work with anybody anywhere. There's, again, no legislation, okay? It is not something that's regulated. I don't care if you're an SLP. I don't care if you're an occupational therapist. I don't care if you have a license. There are plenty of people practicing it that don't have licenses. There are people who are social workers who practice it very prominently. And this is something that you can do with anybody anywhere, okay? So if there are people in Germany that would like your myofunctional therapy services, work with the people in Germany. You don't have to be licensed in Germany. Great. So scope of practice for telehealth, not a thing. And I hope to never have to have this conversation again, but I know it's going to come again because that's just what the internet does. It does this thing. Okay. So is scope of practice an issue? This is where I was really supposed to just push up the slide, right? It's long. Let's go to 45 minutes. Okay, hang in there with me. Let me know if I'm making sense. Let me know if you're still hanging in there. Just throw something in the comments. Okay, big benefit is the increased access to care. There are not enough myofunctional therapists for as many people that have oral myofunctional disorders, orofacial pain, muscular dysfunction, poor oral health, tongue ties. There are not enough therapists to treat everyone that needs this, especially on a global scale. There's nothing that matters more to me than increased access to care. I believe we all should be, no matter what your income level is, your socioeconomic status, you should be able to, at some level, afford myofunctional therapy treatment or process or program or something should be accessible and affordable. You should be able to have it within reach. So you're not going to have somebody that may write with you, but please, they should be available virtually, right? Flexibility in scheduling. As a provider, what more would you like than the opportunity to be able to see people back to back to back to back, where people aren't in your waiting room? You don't have to clean up things in between. You don't have to really move around too much and engage. That's not to say that you should be sitting idle, because sitting is the new smoking. However, if you can sit down, like this morning, I got to see somebody. Yesterday, I saw somebody in Australia as my last one. This morning, my first one is somebody in the UK, and then I get to see somebody in Maine, and then I get to see somebody that's in California. Like, we get to see people that are all over the place. And I was here, just sitting here, talking to the screen. Okay. So it's great to have that flexibility in scheduling, because now you can see people when it's convenient for you, especially for those who might still be working clinically in dentistry. And then you come home after 5 p.m. And I did this a lot too. So you work till 5, your 9 to 5 is clinical. You go home, maybe get home at 6:30 is your first one, 6:30 to maybe 8. You're seeing people, you get 3 patients in. Like, you have that flexibility to do that. Whereas if you're doing mobile, so when I drive around, like, I really have to make sure that everybody is packed in a certain way. So if I'm going to be in Miami-Dade County, I'm seeing everybody in Miami-Dade, because I can't be in Palm Beach County seeing people that are 2.5 hours away from the person I will see farthest south in Miami-Dade County. I can't have those two on the same day. I don't have that flexibility. So if they need a particular day, well, we have to go virtual, because I'm not going to be in your area. Like, it has to be something that works for all parties. And I think with telehealth, you can really get your scheduling down to a T. You're going to reduce your operational costs, which, there's nothing better than that. You're taking down your cost of having to work. So you don't have to have a space. You don't have to maybe pay rent somewhere. You don't have to buy supplies, or like buy out a waiting room and try to figure out how you're going to do things. Or for me, with a home office, I always wind up having to clean. Like, my home office is way in the back. So you're going to walk through my front door. You're going to cross by my dining room, my kitchen, just my dining room and my kitchen before you get to the door for my office. So you're going to walk by. On the way, if you ever look right or left, you're going to see the hallways to the bedrooms. Like, I have to make sure everything is looking good. I don't want my home to show up poorly when someone's coming in to see me in my home office. So, you reduce a lot of those costs and the time associated with the cost of the cleanup and the supplies and space and so forth. So I think it's actually a beautiful thing. For those of you who are hesitant about it, just remember that there's also freedom of location. You can work anywhere in the world. You can be anywhere in the world. I feel super blessed that I am able to work virtually, because in working virtually, I travel back and forth. So I see people in person, and I travel back and forth between New Jersey and Florida. And I'm in New Jersey once a month, every single month. And when I'm there, if I'm in New Jersey and my people in Australia need appointments, guess what? You could fit in anytime. If I'm in New Jersey and somebody in Florida wants an appointment, you might have to wait till I come back, unless you want to get in with virtual. Like, it's going to free you up to be anywhere and to still be accessible to the people who need you and the people who you're servicing. So it's incredibly beneficial to do it. So if you've been hesitant, I will say that it's not a matter of can it be done, it's just how you will do it. Okay. So here are some tips to make it work. Provide some lead time for supplies. So here's what I do when I have people who are working internationally. Like, Australia was the farthest one. Like, if I'm working with somebody in Turkey, or I'm working with somebody in Dubai, or I'm working with somebody in India, I want to make sure that they're going to get the supplies. So here's what I do now. Okay. I provide very, very clear instructions. I want them to take the pictures for me. I send them pictures, like, not pictures, but I send them pictures that kind of outline, I want you to take these 5 pictures. This is what this is going to look like. I'm going to mail you the full kit. Like almost everybody who's international, I need a firm commitment that you're going to go forward with it. And international, I actually do have reduced fees for international for that reason. Like it works better for everybody. But when they are committing, I'm going to send you everything. So you're going to get my whole kit and caboodle, and you're going to get my evaluation kit. Okay. Once you get that, I need a lead time for supplies that's 7 to 10 days for international, or within a week. I typically, when I'm mailing out my kit, my evaluation kit for those who are national, who are within the contiguous United States, even Canada, I need lead time. Like it's always, you need lead time. So you're going to have that lead time. I'm always mailing out priority mail. So it's supposed to be 2 to 3 days, but the US Postal Service thinks that, my life is a joke. And so they will spread that out. And then things that are supposed to get there in 2 to 3 days typically don't tend to get there when I expect them to. So at least a week nationally, I need lead time for. That way I can ship you your evaluation kit. And then from there, you're going to get cheek retractors. You're going to get a range of motion ruler. You're going to get cotton rolls. You get a bunch of stuff, a tongue depressor. There's like a whole thing that I put together for them. That way we can work together. You're going to use the cheek retractors, and you're going to take the pictures that I ask you to take, full facial pictures, profile pictures, occlusal pictures, arch pictures. You're going to take all those pictures that I need, and we're going to do the evaluation together. As we're doing the evaluation, have this bag on hand so that we can use things in there to really get our measurements and so forth. So you're really providing it as clear as possible, the instructions and the time. So give yourself time. Be a purposeful communicator, okay? Practice descriptions. Practice how you would describe to someone what it feels like when they're going to feel their temporomandibular joint, where their fingers should be. If they're going to do a coddle maneuver, how would they make that happen? Like, how would you describe that? Start practicing with somebody who's in person with you. Try guiding them through an evaluation. You can do it in person. You can do it virtually. Like you'll be able to be more confident about doing it that way. Get hands-on when possible. That way you know the subtle differences. If you're a dental provider, this is easy for you. If you're not a dental provider and you're watching this, it should be something that you're practicing. Please practice. Practice makes perfect. Okay, so get hands-on to know subtle differences and understand what that means. Okay, and get creative. Get creative. There's a lot of things like little subtle things. Like if you're working with kids, make it fun, make it light, and like make it stuff where like, okay, I always have them breathe in and breathe out. And sometimes we have them fog up a mirror. And they're fogging up a mirror. So it's like you're sniffing in a flower and then blowing out a candle with your nose. And then there you go. You're going to get fog on the mirror, and we're going to look at the fog and we're going to say, oh, wow, what a big fog. Like get really creative. So this is how you're going to describe inhaling and exhaling. Whereas with an adult, it's just an inhale and exhale. But with a kid, you're going to make it a little bit more fun. Get creative with adults too. You want to feel it, and it might feel like a little bit, if it feels like a marshmallow, let me know. If it feels a little more tough, like, uncooked pasta, let me know. Like, you're going to get creative with how you're describing things, okay? It can work, absolutely. So really briefly, I want to touch on software because there's so many options for software. I think a lot of people, when you think about doing virtual, a lot of people immediately think Zoom, and then everybody's first question is, well, is it HIPAA compliant? Well, there's something that you're probably going to have to ask yourself about whether or not HIPAA compliance is relevant for you based on how you're practicing myofunctional therapy. But you will have private health records and information. And so it's going to be something that you should be concerned with. But depending on how you're going to manage your business, like if you're managing it, like if you are a life coach or a health coach and you're not really under those guidelines in the same way, it's a very touchy topic to really go off of. But Zoom, on their own website, they do have a page about healthcare and about how they are HIPAA compliance, and they do meet HIPAA compliance. If you're working with Zoom, you can do a free account. That's what I love about it. You do a free account. I don't have a free account. I haven't had a free account in years, but a free account, you get about 40 minutes of these meetings. I don't know how many people you can have on. I want to say maybe up to 50. Not like you need that many, because with myofunctional therapy, it's often just you and like that other person. Maybe you might have 2 parents or 2 guardians or another loved one on. So you might have 3 people on a meeting at any time, but you have about 40 minutes, and that should be enough for most of your myofunctional therapy sessions. It won't be enough for your evaluation. So it might be something to consider. But here are some other options, because everybody's always looking at Zoom as like it's the only thing, because it's not. Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams also is HIPAA compliant. Like they meet HIPAA compliance and standards, and that is something that is absolutely fabulous, because this is not only free, but you can get up to 5 gigs of storage in their cloud. You're able to not have them have an account, so they can sign on from anywhere. Whereas with Zoom, I think you can sign on without an account as well for Zoom, but it's a little more common for people to have a Zoom account already, where there would be some more of their information on there. Whereas with Microsoft Teams, they're signing on virtually, unless they have a Teams account for work, but they're signing on virtually often without having to have their own account. So they don't have to sign up for Teams if they've never had Teams, which is fantastic. I think a lot of people don't like that. What I don't like about it is that there's no like real waiting room or waiting area for Teams. You're just kind of on it or you're not. And so if you're doing back-to-back appointments and something runs over, there's nowhere for the people to wait. So, but Teams does give you up to an hour. So that's great. You have 60 minutes with a free account and you're able to use that. Google Meet. Google Meet also really good because it's free as well. Their HIPAA compliance, they say it's with their Google Workspace. So if you have a Google Workspace, which is not free, that's where you're going to get your email that's more customized. So my email address is hello@themyospot.com, and that is through Google. So Google is facilitating that. The myospot.com domain ending, and they're hosting all of my Gmail, and then I get extra storage in my Google Drive, and I'm able to save files, and I can send things that are protected with encryption, and I'm able to work in a HIPAA compliant way. Now, my Google Meet, technically I'm paying for. You can use free Google Meet, but I'm using it as a part of my Google Workspace, and a part of my Google Workspace is going to mean that it's going to be with a cost, but you can use it. You can use it free up to an hour. You can use it for up to 100 people on a call. You don't need 100 people on a call. You can get extra storage space if you're on Workspace. It is something that you can use and facilitate. Google Meet. Is that the same slide twice? I'm sorry, y'all. That's so silly. Doxy. Doxy is my preferred and my favorite. Some people have issues with it. I love it because it's just a free platform. It's got a lot of great features if you're going to sign up to use it as a separate thing, but it's really just telehealth. Like for the most part, you can do a lot of other functions on it, but I just use it for telehealth. So it's doxy.me. There's no .com, it's .me. And then you can get your own waiting room. So if you go to doxy.me/themyospot, you'll be sitting in my waiting room, right? And what will happen is that it'll ask you to check in. It'll be like, check in to let Carissa know you're here. It'll ask you for your permission to use your microphone and your camera, and then your full name, and you type that in there. And I have wonderful instructions for everybody. So my waiting room is that one web link, like that link. I don't know what to call that. Hyperlink. Yes. My waiting room is that one hyperlink. So everybody gets the same hyperlink. It's not like with Zoom where like I have to give out this long lengthy thing where you could like call in and you have the password and you have to do all that. I don't like. Same thing with Google Meet. Like I don't like having a new link every time. I like that it's one set thing and it's free. And then you log yourself in and it's like, welcome to my waiting room. I mean, clearly this was me logging into my own room, so it's going to tell them that I'm away if I'm away. If they log in and it's not our actual meeting time, like they know I'm not in yet, or I'm in and I might be in a session. So the waiting room is there, and then there's things to know. They can check their audio, they can check their video. Like, I really like Doxy. I use it all the time. I've been using it for years, and it is just my go-to, at least 4 years, if not more. I've probably been using it 5 or 6 years now, and I don't think I would ever switch away. I've debated about getting it as like a permanent, let me increase my plan and start paying for it, but I'm all about affordability. And, if it's working for me free and I have no issues and I have a separate place where I could do a lot of the other things that I would use Doxy for, I'm not going to switch. So it's great. Doxy. Love it. If you're looking for something where you pay and you can have it at a reasonable price, but also combine a little bit of your EHR with it, Power Diary is a really great option. I know a lot of people are using Simple Practice, or there's another one that's right on the tip of my tongue. I just can't remember it. Okay. But a lot of people are using that, but those are super expensive. And I don't think I would ever, for any reason whatsoever, go to Simple Practice, because it's like, why am I spending all this money? It's unnecessary. As a business person, I think it's incredibly important to be frugal. I will tell you, from having people who I know who've worked at higher levels at Amazon's incredibly frugal. What you think top executives make, guess what? They don't make, because, the heart and soul of Amazon is being fiscally responsible, and the heart and soul of the MyoSpa is being fiscally responsible. So where I don't have to spend money, I'm not going to spend money. So Power Diary is a really, really great way to combine everything if that's something that you're looking for. I use Charm EHR until my practice got too big for it. It's free, so it's not something that you have to pay for. And when you do start paying for it, it's 50 cents an appointment. After you get to 50 appointments or 25 cents an appointment, whatever, it's like $25 a month by the time you get to the amount of appointments that you would need to cross that threshold. So it's like $25, $30 a month, depending on how many people you're seeing. It's really, really good. But Power Diary is something to check on, because I've never had anybody even mention that. And that's something that comes out in a lot of independent testing, is being very comparable to a lot of the other things that are out there. Okay. So to kind of wrap us up and round us out, and I will check for comments in just a second, but strength doesn't come from what you can do. It comes from overcoming the things, you once thought you couldn't. I think this is the perfect quote to round us out, as we are kind of coming to this conclusion about telehealth, and that it's not something that should be scary, and it's not something that has to be avoided, and it is something that you can do. You just have to overcome some of those aspects about it that you thought you couldn't do. You'll find that you might love it. You might absolutely love it. And you might wonder what you did before you thought it was something that you could do. So thank you so much for being with me today. I don't see any questions in the comments. If you do have questions, please leave them there. I will come back and I will happily answer them. But for now, I wish you a great day. Enjoy your holiday weekend. If you're watching this live, and if you're watching the replay, let me know in the comments. And everybody take care. Bye.